Welcome in to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. A podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. It's time to flock up. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. And it is hard to believe, but this is the last regular season edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. As Mr. Jim Eichenhofer is back in town with us, sir. How strange does that sound? This is the last regular season edition. We got a lot more podcasts to come.
Sure.
Season and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, at times it felt like the season was never going to end, but then at the end, last month or so, it seemed like it flew by. So yeah, it was a very accelerated pace. It seemed like there was 15, 20 games left. I blinked, and now there's only 2 games left. So yeah, it's kind of crazy that we're at that point right now.
It is kind of nuts when you think about it. The road schedule portion of the season came to a conclusion yesterday, Jim, as they were on a very brief road trip after coming back just for one game, taking on the Nets and the Bucks. Yesterday, it was in Milwaukee, and this is what it sounded like on the Pelicans radio network.
Front court Reeves, stop, pop, top of the key. Good. 5-2. Stop the game. Yeah. No look over to Quinones. Extra pass. Reeves for 3 from the left corner. And that is down in front of the Milwaukee bench.
Pels wearing the Bucks out on the offensive glass. Who'd have thunk?
And I tell you what, Doc Rivers said, you know what, Giannis, get back into the ball game, though they only have 50 seconds left in the first quarter. 8 available for the Pels. Matkovic, left wing 3. Over Giannis. Good for Carlo. Quinones drives down the lane, takes on Giannis head-to-head, and lays it in off the top of the box.
Well, he used the left arm to hold Giannis off and fortunate to not pick up an offensive foul, but then the soft touch to lay it in.
Keon Brooks, pop a right wing 3. Yes!
Look, we have seen a lot of 5-point swings go against the Pelicans this season. That one goes in favor.
Quinones drives through. Get it to JRE. Are you serious? Reverse layup despite a ton of contact by the Bucks.
Running the baseline, and that's at least 7 offensive rebounds for the Pels. And more second chance points.
Payton, bounce feed to Carlo. He's looking for another one.
Oh, have some.
And Carlo just postered Brook Lopez with a right hand.
That is a baptism.
At halftime, Quinones left of the top 3. The sweet stroke and a career high for Quinones.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you keep shooting the threes like that, you don't need to get to the foul line.
18 for Lester. 5 of 8.
Yes, sir, indeed.
A dunk by Matkovic. As again, Milwaukee just has no interest in getting back after the missed free throw.
A reverse off the lob from Elfrid.
That's assist number 12 for Payton. Trying to chest it to somebody. Finally gets it to Reeves off the curl. Fakes the shot. Get it back to Payton. Throw it down low. Matkovic. Out long. Touch pass left corner. Keon Brooks for 3. At the shot clock buzzer. Just how you draw it up with the ball movement.
Tell you what, that is fantastic ball movement. They moved it until they found the wide open teammate who happened to be Keon.
Pels have 23 assists as a team. Hand it off to Antonio Reeves. 1-on-1 with A.J. Green. Takes him to the rack. Off the glass.
Foul shot's coming.
Champagne. Confetti. It's time to celebrate. The Pelicans are going to the free throw line. Look at our bench. They all got up.
136-111 was the final. Head coach Willie Green had this to say following the game.
We love to teach. We love to see our young guys grow. And I just told KB, like, he's on the doorstep. And this is great experience for him and the other guys playing against high-level competition. You know, they're making some mistakes, but a lot of positives. And they get to play through some of their mistakes against really good competition. And now they can go back and reevaluate and say, okay, this is what I'm doing well. And these are some areas that, I can improve in. And so that part of it is fun.
Jim, a handful of players had career highs there as well. I mean, what were some of the things that you take away in a game that the score kind of looks like it got out of hand, but I thought it was very competitive and it was entertaining?
Yeah, I mean, especially the first half, I thought that they were in the game. I feel like we've seen this a lot lately, though, where it's like you can see, if you've been watching a lot of these games, how you have to have talent. I mean, they're at a disadvantage in terms of, just numbers-wise. They only had 8 players available last night, but also just guys that have been in the league for a long time. But, yeah, between, Jamal Cain had a season high, Lester Quinones had a season high, Keon Brooks Jr. had a season high in scoring. So the offense was pretty much there. They were down 62-54 at halftime, which isn't bad. But we're seeing, I keep going back to this, just the level of defense that they're playing. They just can't keep up with some of these teams. The production that they're getting. Milwaukee had close to 80 points in the second half, and they just weren't able to stay in the game. We've seen that happen a lot lately, especially on the road where, you get down by 15, 20 points, and it's going to be impossible to come back when you're not getting enough defensive stops.
Keon Brooks, one of those players that had 20 points or more. Jamal Cain, 20. Quinones had 21 as well. Keon Brooks with 20 points, 4 threes he knocked down. Head coach Willie Green had this to say about him.
What's most impressive about him is he's a sponge. So we can give him information. We can explain coverages defensively. We can explain, some concepts offensively. And we see that he can pick it up and he can adjust along the way in games. That's hard to do. And so when you see players that can do that on the fly and that quickly, that's a bonus to have on with our group.
Jim, what has stood out from Keon's play the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think he's, from the beginning, I liked his potential as a 3-and-D guy, but he's not just a three-point shooter. And in fact, mostly his offense has been more slashing and getting to the basket, maybe making some mid-range shots. He had his best three-point shooting game last night against the Bucks, though. Just his versatility, I think, that's one thing that Willie Green mentioned as well, is just the fact that he feels like he's kind of right almost there as far as being able to cement himself as an NBA player. Obviously, he's on a 2-way contract, spent a lot of time in Birmingham, but he's really seized the opportunity to play and contribute lately.
Anything else stand out from that game yesterday? In terms of Quinones being able to get, I guess, his career highs. Yeah, does it matter that you have all these players that are getting all these career highs? I think to me it shows that the team is really playing for this coach and really playing hard down the stretch and getting their opportunities.
Yeah, I thought Quinones was really aggressive. He had a really good second quarter where he had double-figure points in that period. Jamal Cain has really come on lately with some of his scoring. Yeah, you ask, is it important that they're getting career highs in scoring? I don't know necessarily in the broad picture or the scheme of things if it matters that much, but it's probably better than than if they weren't getting their career highs in scoring. So yeah, they're just having the opportunity. I think it is nice if you're in their position where obviously none of the guys are happy that there's been a million injuries, but
yeah.
When you start a game and there's only 8 players, there's only 3 guys coming off the bench, that you're going to be able to go out there and just take a full swing and swing for the fences, because it's not like they're going to be able to take somebody out and take you out of the game and put a bunch of guys in for you because you're not playing well. It's just impossible. It was funny at one point on the TV broadcast last night, Joel Myers was talking about Milwaukee clearing the bench, and he's like, both teams are going to clear the bench, and he kind of caught himself. Antonio stepped in and was like, we can't really clear the bench. We don't really have extra guys. We only have 8 players. So it's just one of those situations where it's like, play with confidence and know that you're not going to get pulled from the game. And I think a lot of times that helps a lot as far as for a player to excel and play well, that they know that they're going to get a good amount of minutes. It's not like you're worried, I'm going to play 3 or 4 minutes, make a couple mistakes, and then sit the rest of the game. With the roster situation the way it is right now, that's not a possibility for the coaching staff.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's what Keon Brooks Jr. had to say about the way coach has coached him and given the opportunity, giving him those kind words as well.
That means the world to me. The season not going the way we wanted to go. Losing some games here down the stretch, but we got a lot of young dudes that have a lot of talent and got a bright future ahead of us, and he's continuing to coach every single day. So that's really important. He's not throwing in the towel. We're going out every practice, every game, trying to maximize everything that we got. So I can't be happier to have a coach like that continues to coach no matter what.
All right, so Jim, that puts to bed at least the road schedule. 2 more games to go, including tonight against the Heat. Quick turnaround, and then obviously Sunday we wrap things up against OKC. But look, in this stretch of games here, and we were talking about it in a broadcast yesterday with the guys up there in Milwaukee, I thought the game against the Clippers, the Lakers, and even Milwaukee here in Brooklyn, you're seeing competitive, fun action, guys playing above the rim. Carlos' dunk poster, man, last night was incredible over Lopez. So you've seen some nice play from some of the rookies, huh?
Yeah, I think Carlo almost had 2 posters last night. He had the one over Lopez that you mentioned. He also had that reverse dunk where Elfrid Payton threw him a long pass, and I was not expecting that. I did not think that he had, long pass alley-oop reverse dunk in his game, but he keeps being impressive with some of the stuff that he can do athletically. But yeah, I mean, I think if you look at what the group of rookies have done, in particular in the month of April and over the last 5 games, I think you're seeing that some of these guys, Yves Missi is an exception to this because he's been playing since the very beginning of the season. He started the second game of the year. He's leading the Pelicans in games played. He's been a prominent part of the rotation pretty much from the first game of the season, where he did so well against Chicago Bulls and opened eyes in the opener. But I mean, the other 3 of the other 4 rookies, where you're talking about Antonio Reeves, Karlo Makovic, Keon Brooks. I mean, for example, all 4 of those guys, if you add in Yves Missi too, are in the top 15 in rookie scoring over the last 5 games. Antonio Reeves is averaging 15.4 points, which is 5th among all rookies in the NBA over that same span. I think what you're seeing, again, with the exception of Yves Missi, who's shown this all season, the other 3 guys, I think, have done enough stuff on the court that you say, if they had been getting playing time all season, they would be getting a lot more recognition and credit for how good of a rookie season they've had. So I mean, I think that's definitely encouraging, the fact that you look at these guys and say really the only thing in a lot of cases that prevented them from being able to show what they could do was just the opportunity. Yeah. And they're getting that now, and they're doing a lot with it. I mean, another couple stats too that I'll throw in there. And again, this is among all rookies. Over the last 5 games, Yves Missi's 4th in rebounding. Karlo Makovic is 13th in rebounding. Antonio Reeves is 3rd in 3-pointers made per game at 2.8. Since the All-Star break, if you look at 3-point percentage, Antonio Reeves is 1st among all rookies at 47.8.
Wow. And
he's 12th among all players across the NBA, minimum 50 attempts. So of all the players in the NBA that have taken at least 50 since the break, he's 12th in 3-point percentage. Karlo Makovic has 8 straight games where he scored 10-plus points. And I think it's also interesting to look at, too, if you look at this recent stretch of a handful of games, and I mentioned all the guys that are in the top 15 among rookies in scoring average, those 4 players. Antonio Reeves is only the only one that really has what I would describe as major minutes that he's played. He's averaged over 30 minutes a game. They've really distributed the minutes and the playing time pretty evenly among the rest of the guys. So Antonio Reeves is the only one where you could say, okay, his averages are pretty high because he's played a good amount of minutes. A lot of these other guys have just been really productive in, what I would call, modest amount of playing time. Keon Brooks is averaging 27 minutes over the last 5 games that he's played. Yves Missi's averaged 26. Carlo's in the low 20s. So I mean, it's not just that these guys have been productive, but they've been efficient as well. That it's not like they're just out there on the court playing 40 minutes a game and the stats are a little misleading because they're out there so much. They've really done a nice job of taking advantage of the time and the opportunity that they've gotten.
You're talking about taking advantage and getting an opportunity and doing that. How much do you think it actually impacts perhaps maybe some of the decisions that'll be coming next week and over the summer, things in nature? And I say that because just at our studio, and I'm not a front office personnel, but some of these games and some of the things they're nice, right? And I'm not picking or extrapolating certain points from coach, but if a head coach in the NBA, in this case Willie Green, says this player's got an NBA body, this guy's, the ability you just heard Coach earlier talk about with Keon Brooks Jr., we can explain something to him. He learns on the fly. He gets that going. He's also mentioned that about Yves Missi. He's talked about it with Karlo Makovic. You're seeing those are, I think, Jim, real honest-to-goodness traits that if I'm this organization, I'm happy about and I want to continue to grow and move on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, those are all positives. I think there's definitely been guys in the past here that have been on 2-way contracts that probably I mean, a lot of them didn't get this kind of opportunity, and if they did get some semblance of this chance to play, maybe they didn't show as many signs as far as reasons to be optimistic about their future, enthusiastic about what their potential is down the road. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that regardless of the circumstances, if you hear your head coach say some of the things that he said about players like Keon Brooks, that you have to take that as a real positive going into the offseason. Obviously, there's still 2 more games to play, but I think for a lot of these guys, I mean, maybe we'll see some of them again in Summer League this year. And going forward, I mean, it's definitely something that you can build on and look to as reasons why you should be thinking that it's possible that these guys have a role down the road. I mean, you asked the question, how much does this affect next season? I have no idea. I'll be totally honest with you. Just because there's so many things that we don't know in terms of the offseason, in terms of roster moves. Obviously, there's a draft pick coming in the first round. So, I mean, how things are going to be reshaped, it's really hard to say. I think the only thing that these guys can do that are rookies or players that are just trying to carve out a spot in the NBA is just play as well as they can and then go from there.
Put good tape out there.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Put good tape out there for not only here, but anywhere else, because obviously the Pels have done that too, right? They've gone out and grabbed some players that can help. I think other teams will do that. You mentioned the offseason and draft picks coming out. Well, first and foremost, you got to find out where you're picking, Jim. So I just counted 5 Mondays. 5 Mondays from now is May 12th. That will be the lottery. So we'll tune in before a playoff game. We'll all hope and see where that lottery pick will be. What can you tell us about that now? And you look at the standings, we have 2 games left. Pretty much every team in the league has 2 to 3 games. I feel like last night kind of solidified in a block at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty clear to me even before last night of where the Pelicans are probably going to finish. As far as I always like to keep this less confusing. I call it the pre-lottery slot. Instead of saying like the 4th pick, because obviously we don't know until May 12th. But yeah, I mean, based on the standings right now, because Philadelphia won their most recent game against Washington, the Pelicans definitely will have the 3rd or 4th slot in the lottery. And it's an extremely good chance, unless you have a lot of belief and confidence in the Charlotte Hornets' ability to win 2 games in Boston this weekend, Friday and Sunday, that the Pelicans are going to be in the number 4 pre-lottery slot. So if that's the case, that they're going to have a 12.5% chance of winning the lottery and getting the number 1 pick, and they're going to have a 48% chance of picking in the top 4. If you add together the odds of 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, that adds up to approximately 48%. So, I mean, that's what we're looking at right now. I mean, it's kind of a coin flip of whether they're going to be in that top 4, and the 12.5% chance is basically like a 1 in 8 chance of ending up with the number 1 pick. And but the thing is they've had a smaller percentage than that in the past and won it. I think it was about 6% when they won it in 2019 and got Zion Williamson.
That's what I was going to ask you to, for people listening right now, the times that the Pels have gotten the number 1 overall pick, that 30-plus wins. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they did not. I feel like I have to keep reminding people of this because, as you know, I'm not a fan of.
You're not a fan of what's going on right now.
I'm not a fan of people who
I was texting poor Jim yesterday. What was it going into last night's games? 7-43, the combined win-loss percentage of the bottom 5 teams, league-wise win-loss record, which includes the Pels, have won in their last 10 games. Like you'll see 1-9, 2-8 in teams' last 10 games. If you combine all the wins for the bottom 5 and all of the losses, it was 7-43 when I group texted you guys, and I can just picture you just rolling your eyes because what are we doing?
It's even beyond what the teams themselves are doing. To me, what drives me crazy sometimes is like the fan and media discussion about it, because I feel like we always have to keep reminding people too that you realize that if a team goes 0-82, they still only have a 14% chance of winning the lottery.
Not win a game.
Right. That's the part that I don't understand is I feel like people are so maniacal about the idea of teams need to lose. It's the last game of the season, and like theoretically, say every team in the lottery, the 14 teams, all have their slot determined, and it doesn't matter what the outcome of the games are on Sunday afternoon, because it's already, like, this will probably be the case for the Pelicans. They'll probably go into Sunday with the 4th slot locked up, and there's still going to be people out there being like, they got to lose today, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. You have to look at the standings. It doesn't help. It's not like they give you more. Yeah. It's not like if Utah loses by 57 points on Sunday that they get more lottery balls. Like, it's based on the standings. It's based on win-loss record.
57 would be brutal.
Right. Well, but also possible based on the way things have been going lately.
That is very true. How about some news of the week? I haven't had a chance to really chat with you about it. How surprised? I was surprised with the Kings' decision, right? I mean, Coach Brown, I don't know what the Aaron Fox was thinking following, and he lost the game. He was out of a job the next day. A couple months later, Memphis has parted ways. I'm like, huh? Denver?
Right.
They just won the NBA title 2 seasons ago. How surprised have you been? Is this telling? Is this a trend? Does that mean teams perhaps that we wouldn't think would make changes at the end of the season do, or are these individual cases? How do you look at this? How do you analyze it?
I mean, before I say anything, I want to mention, too, that I feel like one of the things I've learned over the years is that there's always more to the story than what you know. So within these organizations, there's definitely more. And I feel like there's definitely been more things that have come out that people have reported about the Denver situation and the Memphis situation recently as well. But, I mean, just in general, before you get into the specifics of those situations, what blows my mind is it feels like the regard for winning is kind of going out the window. Like, it feels like winning is being taken for granted so often. And I know this isn't a brand new thing. I mean, there's been coaches of the year that have been fired a lot. There was a stretch in the NBA there where it seemed like people said the last thing you want to do if you're a coach is win coach of the year, because within 2 years or so, you're probably going to get fired, because there literally was a bunch of guys that did that. And I think it's interesting, too, if you look at the recent list of coaches who've won championships, that a bunch of those guys have gotten fired as well in recent years. Frank Vogel won, and he got fired. Budenholzer got fired after he won with the Bucks, like Milwaukee, within 2 years. Yeah. Nick Nurse is not Toronto's coach anymore. So I don't know. To me, for one thing, it's hard to relate to the idea of being like, well, we won a championship, but that's not good enough. On the circumstances where it's like, I think. I'll speak a little bit for the fan base. I think people here are so hungry for wins, hungry to have a winning team, hungry to have consistency to even get to that point. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's just hard for me to fathom that you win a championship and then you're itching to get rid of that coach within a year or two. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I do think that, this is something that has come up a lot in the NBA in recent years too, that it feels to me, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe my memory is off, but I don't remember there being this many conflicts in the past between head coaches and front offices. And it feels like that's happening a lot more now, where it used to be that the front office was like, okay, we're going to do the GMing and we're going to do this. We're not going to get involved in all these other decisions that the coaches have traditionally made. And I think once you let that happen, once you start having front offices that get so heavily involved in the decision making that the coaches traditionally have been left alone kind of to make, you're going to have a lot more conflicts. And it seems like that's from the outside looking in, that's happening a lot. And I think in the Denver and Memphis situation, we're hearing reports of, conflict about which players to play. That used to be a coach thing. Yeah. The GMs used to say, this is what the coach's job is. I'll give you the players, but it's your team and you're around them every day in practice. I'm not going to, overstep or put a ton of input into your day-to-day decisions because I'm not around the team every day. So I feel like there's just been a lot of changes that have happened over the last 5-10 years with the front office's relationship with coaches across the league. And I think that's a huge factor. It's maybe a factor every single time in the recent ones that we've heard about lately. And it's funny you mentioned you were surprised by the Mike Brown firing. It was like that was like hold my beer. We'll show you what a real surprising firing is when we do it with 8 games left as Memphis did and 3 games left like Denver did.
It's just shocking, and especially when we're not there. I don't know. We just look at it from the outside, but it seemed like, was it to appease a player that then not even a week or two later, says, trade me. And he's no longer on the team. So now the coach and that player not on the team anymore. It's crazy in Sacramento's case. And I think what I take on what you just said is it's individual. It's on a case-by-case basis for some reason, although at the same time, we still don't understand it. I mean,
sure.
I don't know.
And the one thing I'll add in, too, about the situation with Denver is it sounds like from some of the reporting that ESPN has done, or Tim McMahon talked about this on Brian Windhorst's podcast, that Mike Malone is a disciplinarian. He's a hard-talking guy. He doesn't mince words. And it's like, to me, you got to be careful when you start to get to the point where you can't let a coach. I mean, I don't know if I'm saying this because my parents were both teachers, but it's like at a certain point you have to have some authority. You can't just say like, well, if somebody's feelings get hurt, that means we have to make a bunch of changes, because you're going to be chasing your tail if you do that. If you constantly
100%.
are trying to appease everyone, you're going to have a revolving door, and it's like you're going to have a situation maybe where you win a championship and 3 or 4 years later, you're looking around and like, what happened to that championship team? I feel like there's a bunch of examples of that. Phoenix was in the NBA Finals in 2021. Look at where they are now after they
100%.
have kind of had a never-ending cycle of head coaching changes. Milwaukee won the championship that same year in 2021. They've had multiple head coaches since then, and you can't say that they're better off now than they were a few years ago when they actually were a complete championship contender. I don't know if you can really say that right now. So it's one of those things where it's like, I see a lot of be careful what you wish for in a bunch of these circumstances as well, because if you're not content with success, sometimes that turns into all of a sudden you have way less success than you did when you were upset about how you weren't, if your goal is, if you think we have to win 2-3 championships in a row or we're going to be upset, you're going to turn into a lot of dysfunction and chaos in your organization.
I don't even know how it's not even the phrase grass is green on the other side. Mike Malone's the same coach that he was 2 years ago that got you to the finals.
Right.
Who knows, it was the same coach that, taught toughness on defense. Same guy. These are the same coaches. And to your point, all Mike Brown said was, I have no idea why Aaron Fox is fouling over there. He had no business being over there. He should be allowed to say that.
Right.
Because we're all thinking it. We're all going, why are we fouling a three-point shooter? He's saying the same thing. And if you're going to get fired as a coach for saying, we sat there, we went over it. We went over at practice. I drew it up on the dry eraser board. We told him before they went in the huddle, and then he, for some reason, went and did it. If that is not allowed, well, then you can't coach. Period.
No, totally. I 100% agree with you. I mean, this is a longer discussion for another day, too, but I also think that there's been a shift in the time that I've been here, too, and I'm not speaking specifically about the Pelicans, just overall league-wise. Sometimes I feel like you have to remind people the players are employees too. You can't treat them as though they run everything. Every player in the league right now, including LeBron James, is not going to play for 30, 40 years. So eventually, if you're in charge of an organization, every single player you have will not be there. So you don't want to change everything that you do based on their wishes, because eventually you'll still be in that position and they won't be anymore. So I think that's something that needs to be discussed and thought about as well, is that of course you do everything you can to make them happy. You do everything you can to create a great working environment, but you can't turn over everything to them,
right? Because
they're, at the end of the day, they're still employees. You're not their employee, but I feel like a lot of times that's what's happening with some of these teams, is that it's like flipping the situation where it's like the players are your boss. You start doing that and you're in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's maybe why San Antonio had so much success, right? Everyone knows you go to San Antonio, this is how you're going to play.
Popovich
this is what's going to be. This is the type of player you're going to be. Period. End of story.
Right.
And they had some ridiculous 20-plus years where you've been a playoff team. And I know they pick 8. But that's still incredible when they're all winning seasons.
Yeah, and you have to get guys that buy into that as well. If you get players that come in like Tim Duncan and say, I'm willing to be coached, I'm willing to be yelled at, because I know that it's at the end of the day, it's the best thing for me and my career and the organization in the future. That's the ideal. That's the way that you want things to be run.
I think Tony Parker was a great example of that. A little resistant at first, took it. Then became a champion.
How about Manu Ginobili, who came off the bench for a big chunk of his career?
Yeah.
You know how many players are like, I'm not coming off the bench?
Right.
And to me, every organization that runs into that situation that has a player You say, this guy Manu Ginobili, you remember him? He came off the bench.
Yeah.
If he can do it, you can do it too. So,
can you give me your best Charles Barkley Ginobili impression every time you would hit a 3 during the highlights?
Ginobili!
That's it right there.
TGI Jim, it's Friday, which means Mr. Eichenhofer has a pair of things for us. Trending numbers and weekend showdown. What are we starting with, Jim?
You know what? Since we just talked about the West a lot and some of the coaching changes, let's start with the weekend showdown. So I couldn't narrow this down to one game, and also, we have to say the Sunday games, I mean, who knows going into that, because based on what happens tonight, a lot of the impact of those games is gonna change. But I picked for a Friday weekend showdown, I picked Memphis at Denver. The Grizzlies are in 7th place in the West. The Nuggets are in 4th. Really, I think if Memphis loses this game, they're going to be in the play-in. So I think that's the most significant element to that. Mm-hmm. I think if Denver, right now with Denver being in 4th, if the Nuggets win tonight and then they win Sunday, they're playing at Houston, where the Rockets obviously already have a spot locked up at the 2 seed. So maybe Houston doesn't have a lot going into that game. So I just think Memphis-Denver tonight is a huge swing game as far as the Grizzlies' ability to avoid the play-in. I think if they lose, this is a crazy back-to-back that they just played at home a late game last night on TNT, and then they're flying all the way to Denver to play against the Nuggets. So that's the weekend showdown for Friday. The weekend showdown for Sunday is a 2:30 game on ESPN, same time as Pelicans Thunder. The Clippers are playing at Golden State. LA is in 5th place right now. Golden State's in 6th. So, I mean, those are two teams that could end up in the top 6 and will be trying to avoid the play-in tournament. I'm fascinated to see who, for example, who ends up with the 6th seed and has to probably match up against the Lakers, because most likely the Lakers are going to finish 3rd. Houston's locked in at 7th, or 2nd, I mean. So who are they going to play at 7? And I know we talked about this recently, but just this is such an interesting race as far as the seedings go. And then lastly, the trending number, Gus, I'm going to go. Trending number is 0, and that is as we record this at about 11.
0.
Yes, as we recorded this about 11 a.m. We haven't seen the injury report yet for the Pelicans, but it's possible that 0 Pelicans who played in the January 1st game at Miami, out of the 9 guys who appeared in that game, will play tonight against Miami.
0.
So, yes. 4 of the starters from that game have been shut down for the season. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, C.J. McCollum, DeJounte Murray. 2 of the 9 guys that played in that game for New Orleans, Daniel Tyson, Javonte Green, aren't on the roster anymore. And then the other 3 of the 9, Brandon Boston's been out for a while. Jordan Hawkins missed some games with injury. Yves Missi also missed a game or 2 recently with injury. So it's possible of those 9 players that 0 will get to play a second time against the Heat for New Orleans. If that doesn't sum up the way the season has gone from a player availability standpoint, I don't know what does.
I was going to say, if you can even begin to understand what you just said,
right?
That is absolutely insane. That's Jim Eichenhofer. Jim_Eichenhofer is the way to give a follow over there on X. And, of course, over on Pelicans.com, we'll have post-game analysis and then stuff going into that OKC game, the season finale. Look, we're going to meet again on Monday and do a podcast on the end of the season and going into the postseason and all. But why don't you give people real quick 30 seconds or so. What's coming up over the next couple of weeks here as well? We're not done next week. We're going to do some player profiles, right?
Right. Well, next week I think we're going to do more kind of a broad review of the season. And then the following week after that, which I believe is the 21st of April, we're going to start with season reviews. We're going to have guests on to speak about each player. Given the way the season has gone, this maybe won't surprise people, but we actually have a list of 14 players that we're going to be reviewing because in terms of guys that played a significant amount of minutes, that's how many we ended up with. Obviously, unfortunately, several guys' season was over, earlier in the year, whether it was December, January, or February. But we'll have about 3 weeks of, almost 3 full weeks of player reviews. We'll have Monday through Friday. The week of April 21st, the week of April 28th, and then May 5th. And then that's going to segue right into the lottery, which we mentioned earlier is May 12th. So, we're going to be quite busy over the next few weeks, even though we don't have any more games after Sunday.
No doubt. And more importantly, I think next week you make your 4K debut.
I do.
4K debut, yes. We're going to
Okay.
do a Radio Roundtable video portion podcast that will be airing on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I knew it was going to be on Pelicans Plus. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it's going to be on the network
I'm
as well.
assuming it will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty sure it will be.
All right.
Regardless, 4K.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're ready for that. I don't know.
Me, believe me, same thing here as well. Thank you, Jim. We will talk again on Monday here. I'll see you tonight, of course, and you will be part of Pelicans OT at the end of the game for the next 2 games here as well. Pels and Heat tonight at 7. Pels and Thunder on Sunday at 2:30. We thank you for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, the iHeartRadio app, or where you get your podcasts. And be sure to give Jim and Gus a follow on X at Jim_Eichenhofer and GCat_17. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.